Hello,
Hi!
and welcome to our thoughtless tree.
Welcome.
And we're going to do a video about bunnies again, rabbits, house rabbits. One of our favourite topics because we have house rabbits. You had them as a child, I had them as a somewhat child, teenager, young teenager, adolescent. We know a lot about them, I think, as a result of that, and I think there's a lot of bad advice out there. Some of the stuff you tell me you've seen on TikTok.
Yeah. Because I think there is like a big difference as well between like location-based advice. So I know like in America they get completely different advice that we do over here
Do
as
they?
well. Yeah.
Like what sort of things?
Well, I'm only judging it by what I've seen on TikTok. So if I'm wrong, like people like feel free to correct me. But things like you don't need constant hay.
Really?
Wire caging, like bottoms are okay. You don't need to free roam. Free roaming's cruel, I've heard. So yeah.
Wonderful advice.
Yes.
Let's give some better advice. And we kind of made 12 points. We're just sort of thinking freely, and it came to about 12. There's probably more things worth adding. Please add them if you can.
And I mean, we might go on tangents anyway, which could bring more points. And
good at tangents. Yeah, so shall we get started? So the first thing we've thought of really is they need space. And I don't think a lot of people realise this. I think that comes back to the classic idea of you put bunnies in a hutch and they're happy there. My dad had that when he was young in the 60s.
I think like the idea of keeping rabbits in cages or like hutches kind of comes from like rabbits solely being kept as like a food source.
Yeah.
Because you don't want them to move because they'd get more juicy and fatter. And,
that's true.
So I think it kind of comes from that, and things just haven't... Well, I'd say things are changing. Like house rabbits are more common now.
Yeah.
But I think,
It's funny that's still the name they're specified as, though, house rabbits, as though an ordinary rabbit doesn't have the space around the house. But ideally, yes, you want your rabbits to be able to free roam. Ours, we've just moved into our new flat, and they've got the entire living room, but we're going to introduce them to more of it as we go along.
Yeah, it's a nice big space for them though.
Yeah. Not everyone is able to have them free roam, obviously, because there are complications, which we'll get on to.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in this situation before where we've had to not have them free roam, but things like, they're called like X-pens, or like cages made out of like the grids. But I'd say they at least need to be like 5 foot by 5 foot, maybe bigger if you can. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people realise how much space they need, but it's really obvious when you think about it. They are intelligent animals. Intelligence not far off dogs, although they express themselves very differently. And obviously, they need space to do things.
And rabbits show how happy they are by running around and flicking their legs and everything. And they like to be able to get like to their top speed, which you can't really do in a hutch.
They're not at all vocal animals, really. But they express everything through their body and their movement. And they need that. And they very much enjoy exploring. So they do need a lot of space. Yeah, if you're not able to have a full free roam, there are pens you can build. The grid panels, I think, are the best things because I really don't understand why pet shops don't sell them. Hutches are like 200 quid and they're tiny.
We should link below like examples of on like Amazon or...
And we'll show pictures of what we mean as well.
Yeah.
Because you easily just connect them together. Sometimes you need some cable ties as well because they can come a bit loose. But stick them together. You can build something really big, make a door for yourself to get in, and you're sorted. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Dismantle them when you need, move it about.
And they can just then show like the happy personality traits of bunnies, because I think like if you are keeping a rabbit constantly locked in a cage, they aren't going to be able to express themselves.
No.
Like flopping or
there's nothing they can really do in there, and it's so obvious. There's kind of nothing more you need to say about it, really.
Plus, like they need space. Another element of that is you're going to find it really hard to bond with your rabbit if they're outside in a hutch or a cage, or even if they're inside in a cage. You're going to find it harder to bond with them as like if you have house rabbits, either fully free roam or in a pen. You can go in and sit with them, and you can have them like walk on you, come and sniff you.
Yeah, that is a really good point actually, because I think from a bunny perspective, if you've got them in a hutch or something, and you want to cuddle them and you want to bond with them, they're in their safe space, and then suddenly this big human comes in with his hands, drags them out of it, and is holding them in the air. It's not going to be an experience that's when they're likely to become possibly aggressive sometimes, at the worst, but definitely scared.
So one of my best friends, they told me that when they were like a kid, they had a friend who had 2 rabbits in a hutch outside, and the hutch only got opened when they were fed. And because of this, the rabbits had gotten so aggressive, because they were probably just very scared, that they had to like quickly open it, throw the food in, and then and it's like, that's no way for an animal to live.
Yeah. I mean, a happy, safe rabbit is not at all aggressive.
The way I see it is like, would you keep a dog in a cage or a hutch constantly? No. So why do it to a rabbit?
Yeah. So if you want to bond with them, space you can also get in and sit with them without being a threat, and just sit there for a bit, let them get used to you, smell you, see how they feel around you. It's
like at our home, one of our rabbits, Hendrix, likes to go and sit on the back of the sofa with us and kind of just chill out.
Yeah.
Watch telly with you.
She likes, at our old flat, obviously we just moved into this one, she likes as well in the morning sitting on your pillow when it was time for food.
And just glaring at me until I woke up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so that's point 1. It's quite an obvious point, really. So point 2, I think, comes off of that. They do need a lot of space, and it is ideal to have them free roaming, but they can be a danger to themselves because they love wires.
I've heard people call it spicy hay.
Well, I kind of get it. Like, if you look at a wire, imagine the texture of it is nice and chewy. It's probably similar to roots in the ground.
Yeah.
Bunnies just do, as far as every bunny I've known has enjoyed chewing wires. Lennon was especially bad for that.
There was that one time when we were playing the PS2.
Yeah.
We had like 2 of the like old like wired controllers. We had looked away for all of 2 seconds, and Lennon had gone through both of them.
Yeah.
We're like, why aren't these controllers working anymore? And they were just.
Yeah, I mean, my old rabbit Dylan, when I was young as well, it literally would be like that with my laptop charger. He'd come over 1 minute, like he's just sniffing your feet, saying hello, and then a second later, your laptop charger's been bitten through. And it's obviously really annoying if it's something like that, because laptop chargers cost a lot to replace, but 2, it's obviously incredibly dangerous because they can get themselves electrocuted. All wires are enjoyable to them, and it's a really important thing, bunny proofing, that you make sure there is no way they're going to get to those wires. Wire protectors are a good thing, especially like you want some pricey ones that they really can't get their teeth into. Or
even if you have like an old hose pipe or something laying around.
Yeah.
That'd probably be good to feed wires through.
Yeah, they're not foolproof, those ones, but they're certainly good. We've used that before. Expect
Or
them.
just don't leave any wires low enough for a bunny to reach. And remember that they can jump quite high.
Yeah.
Our rabbit, Hendrix, can jump onto, I'd say,
jump about up to my waist.
Yeah. I'd say like, a metre nearly?
Yeah.
So you have to be wary of that as well. So if you've got like any desks with wires on or anything.
Yeah. Well, that leads us on to point 3, I think, really, which expect them to break boundaries is the way I was thinking about it. But I think this generally means like you think you've bunny proofed, you think there's areas they're not going to be able to get to. They will get to them. They're such adventurous animals. This is another reason they love space, because they really, really enjoy just exploring things. They're constantly inquisitive, looking at everything around them.
Also very stubborn.
Yes.
So like if they aren't allowed to go somewhere, I think it just probably makes them want to do it even more.
Yeah.
Kind of like a child, if you tell them, oh, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to.
I mean, you can train buddies, but teaching them no, they're very likely to get angry and become more persistent.
Yeah.
I
guess that's another thing. Like bunnies are very particular about their things.
Yeah.
So like if you move their toys or like change their litter tray or something,
Hendrix gets really grumpy with you.
Yeah, like will snarl at us, stomp at us. Not in like an aggressive way, just like communicating.
Yeah.
That she's not happy with us.
Yeah. She's a very grumpy girl.
Mm-hmm. Sweet but grumpy.
But yeah, and Lennon, of course, was awful when it came to breaking boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be areas we think that'd be completely gone off, blocked off, and she would just not stop trying to get in. And I remember the worst one, actually, was when I was a kid, and we had my rabbits, Duster and Dylan. And we used to call it suicide jumps at the time, because it was getting onto the kitchen counter. They had the whole round of the kitchen, and it was really high kitchen counters, but there was a chair they can jump on, and then if they jumped onto the bin, which was one of those like metal bowl-shaped tops, like upside down.
One of the ones
bowl.
with like the swinging.
Yeah, it's like a really slippery surface that you can't get flat on. And if you were quick, you could jump off of that onto the kitchen counter. So they would jump off this chair onto that, immediately slip off it, like whack into it, fall on the floor, go up, try it again, whack, fall on the floor, and keep doing it until they'd mastered the art of getting onto the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we had a stair gate, and then we had this problem at our old flat as well, didn't we? We had a stair gate, and then we had to put something in front of the stair gate. We had like an old plank from an old shelf, and then we had to put another bit of wood, and then a bigger bit of wood, and then cushions to stop them getting behind the wood and wedging it, and all sorts. Stair gates are not foolproof, I think, for bunnies, unless they're really, really thin ones.
Unless you can get one that's kind of solid, like there's no gaps.
Yeah, the best thing is
I
like half a door, really.
Yeah.
Like a short door. But yes, they will be very adventurous, very stubborn, very eager to explore things, and you've got to be prepared for that. And that's one of the things moving in here today, even, because we've bunny-proofed it as best as we know. We both had bunnies a long time, but we still wanted to make sure we're moving them in the day so we can watch and see what they're doing, see if there's anything we haven't noticed, things we've missed.
Yeah.
Because there always is, I think. That would be that point, though.
I guess now would be that bunnies get bored, which I guess kind of is similar to what we've already been saying.
Yeah.
But I guess now we could cover like ways to fight the boredom.
Yeah, also I think it's important as well because like you hear people getting annoyed, oh, the bunny keeps chewing my carpet or ripping up something important. And often I think that's because they don't have anything else to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a trouble when we had to keep in my old place, and we had to keep the bunnies in a pen for a little bit, so we had a rung underneath them because it was a wood floor. There was a bit of time where Hendrix, as when we were first setting up, started eating the carpet or the rug, and we just put a load of toys in, and mostly that stops.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of not the best example because Hendrix does just eat fabric anyways, or at least tries to.
That's true. He loves...
Like, every blanket we've ever gotten...
She loves fabric.
Yeah. But yeah, they do need, like, toys and... Just, I guess, like any animal, they need enrichment to be able to kind of keep their brains going. That's why we find... So, on a morning, we give them... like a small amount of pellets to eat, and we serve them in like the children's stacky cups, because you put like a couple of pellets in each cup and then put them in, and they love to like pick up the cups and fling them and run around with them. Yeah,
because if you put the pellets underneath the other ones, they have to remove the other cup before they can get to them. They do love doing that.
And they get so excited leading up to it, like they're running around, they're doing like flicks, they're doing little jumps. It's very sweet.
I do think people undervalue how intelligent rabbits are and how much they do need stimulation like that as a result. The same way dogs do. Dogs constantly bring you toys to want to play with. Bunnies don't do that so much. Their stimulation... I mean, they do play... But a lot of the time
the other day, our rabbit Fred was dribbling one of his balls.
Yeah. But often I think a lot of their play involves chewing, ripping
destroying
stuff up.
Things, yeah.
Chucking things about a bit. Mm-hmm. So I think people, because it's different, you kind of don't notice the importance of it. But yeah, that's important stimulation for them. It's not just them destroying things because they're annoying or something.
Yeah, and... like, toys and things like that don't have to be things that you are buying for mass amounts of money in pet shops or anything like that. It can just be the toilet roll tubes bunnies love.
Yeah, they do.
Cardboard boxes.
Yeah, we get the banana boxes you can get for free at supermarkets are really good for that. Because they can be houses that you like cut a door into, as well as things they destroy.
So on like YouTube, I've watched before like toys you can make for your rabbits by things that you might already have in the house. So there's ways to like turn like toilet roll tubes into like balls that you can stuff like treats in.
That's cool.
And things like that. So like you don't have to be spending a lot of money on rabbits.
Yeah, I mean...
Also cat scratch pads.
Oh,
and things
that is
like
a good
that
one.
are very good for them.
Yeah, I mean, cat scratch pads can be quite expensive. Mm-hmm. However, I think when you look around, you can find some good deals on them.
We found, like, so if you are living in the UK, places like B&M, The Range, even TK Maxx have, like, some pretty good...
That's really fun stimulation for them, that. And they last a long time as well, scratch pads, for bunnies.
Also, the other day I bought a massive children's cardboard house from Hobbycraft.
Yes.
Which they're going to love. So.
Amazon boxes was another good one. We used to have for Dylan. You have to remove all the tape because the sellotape's bad for them. And you don't want too much like waxy cardboard because of the ink in it. But we used to just give him cardboard boxes and he'd just happily, over time, slowly demolish all of it, really.
Oh, we found as well, if you can get, like, non-waxy kind of the brown paper.
Oh, yeah, that's good, isn't it? Like, that's the
they'll
ones they
shred
sometimes...
it, they'll...
The ones they sometimes, like, pad out boxes with. That is a good one. And I suppose talking about all that chewing as well is kind of the next point, because they are constantly chewing. And it's not just because of the enjoyment. I think that it's just kind of hardwired into them that they need to be, because they need constant hay. They need constant... I would say food, but I don't want that to sound like you need to really fatten them up, because a lot of the time you see people give them mass amount of pellets, more than they possibly need to eat in a day, and that's bad. But they do need a constant supply of hay to just be continuously chewing, because it's the same as horses in that way, that if they stop eating, their stomachs will seize up and they'll get stasis, or just basically constipation, but very serious for them, like horses. If the gut blocks up, everything goes wrong with the bunny, and very quickly it becomes very serious and they can die from that.
Yeah, I think like you need to get it seen to like ASAP, because within like the first 24 hours a bunny can die if it's not seen to. Yeah,
that's really difficult one as well, because I think people can easily overlook the signs of that, which is your bunny suddenly not eating anymore, not moving, or trying to flop out but not being able to get comfortable. The eyes look glazed over when they're in a bit of pain.
Yeah.
If your bunny's not eating, there's probably something very serious wrong, because they need to constantly be eating.
We kind of had an experience with this not too long ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Hendrix got the gut stasis, and it was not only like an expensive experience, but it is very, very, like, I don't know, I was very anxious the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I was less so, because I remember Dylan he was particularly susceptible to stasis when he got old as a rabbit. But it is still very serious, and it is expensive. I think it's important to catch it early, which we did, which is why I wasn't worried. But if you don't, then you're in trouble. And
I think a lot of my worry probably did come from not long before that we had to have our rabbit Lennon put to sleep.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just kind of like I can't lose another one. Like, I don't want to go through that again for like a long time.
Yeah. Lennon died for other reasons. That's a whole complicated story you can watch a video about.
Yeah.
That wasn't stasis, but so on that sense, they do need a constant supply of hay. You also need to make sure they are eating. And I suppose we can talk in general about their diet, really, because pellets are well, good pellets do have a lot of useful nutrition in them, but definitely don't feed them too much of them. How much percent did you say is the pellets?
It's about 5% of their diet is pellets, so 5%. It's not a big chunk. There's a guide somewhere which I could put on the screen now, which is like how many pellets a rabbit should be eating per like pound of their size or something.
Yeah.
And you can get like cups that have like I know like in pet shops in the UK, some of them have like cups that you can just take that have like the measurements down the side for like how much to feed. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, so definitely not just pellets, which is you see a lot in pet shops. There's just
a bowl.
Yeah, just a massive stack of them. That as soon as you just give them and let them eat however long they need to, and it's not good. Not only is it going to make them obese, and it's not enough like small things like hay they need digesting in there, but it's also really dry. We find when we give the bunnies pellets, they drink so much more water. Whereas greens, which is the other thing you do need, they're full of water. Remember how surprised I was when I found out there was 70% water in a potato? Or was it 80?
It was a lot.
I still can't believe that. I mean, you look at how hard they are. Same with carrots. You just don't think there's that much...
Oh, while we're on the subject of carrots, it's definitely a big misconception that rabbits should be eating carrots.
Yes. I mean, they can have some.
Yeah, like they could have like a little chunk, like maybe like a couple of times a week. But a whole carrot isn't...
Is it? I can never remember if it's a high amount of salt or high amount of sugar in carrots. I think it's sugar. Is it sugar?
Yeah.
Which is the other danger with too much fruit as well.
Yeah, because that could cause their tummies to...
Yeah. Those things are very special treats. Mainly it is greens minus ones like iceberg lettuce, which can kill them. I don't know why that is really.
Yeah, I think avocado as well is really bad for them.
Is it?
Yeah. Obviously, like, no onions, no potatoes.
Yeah. Our ones love... Spinach is always a good, just like basis one.
Cavallonero. I think it's like a type of kale.
When you can get it cheap, because that's normally posh.
But not like
expensive.
massive amounts of that. And
spring greens, as they're just called, whatever they are.
Or like herbs are really good, like mint, like basil, things like that. And they can also be really good if your rabbit is going through like gut stasis, because apparently like the strong scent of the food can encourage them to eat.
Yeah, that makes sense. Green beans is another one as well. I think they're Lennon's absolute favourite. It always surprises me because the current two, Hendrix and Fred, also love green beans, and I never think like there's nothing special about the taste of green beans. It's probably like the crunch,
the texture.
It is, and when you think about the texture of a green bean,
it might be similar to the texture of a wire.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, they probably are. So they're always a good one. Brussels sprouts they can quite like. I mean, you can just change them up a bit. We often will buy veg that's reduced. I mean, we go quite regularly to the shop for that.
Yeah.
But to get it a bit cheaper, and it means you can change up what they're having a bit, and that's quite nice for them. But yeah, generally some pellets, certainly not too many. Good amount of greens and
you do
constant
want
hay.
A good quality pellet though.
Yeah.
I think it is worth spending a bit more on. Like we use the Science Select ones, and our rabbits really love them. So.
Yeah, and they're better nutrition, and also for the digestion, because again it's so sensitive. Bad pellets make stasis more likely, and in the long run that's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Our next point, I suppose, I mean, I wanted to say this one anyway, but it's just that bunnies are a long-term commitment. And
you go.
Now I suppose I was thinking because of like Easter. And
yeah.
I wish there was, like people say the dog's not for Christmas. I wish they said the bunny's not just for Easter.
I think I once read somewhere that in the UK anyways, 80% of rabbits that are got as Easter presents end up in rescue centres. That's
a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
They are the most abandoned animals, aren't they?
Yeah, the most neglected animals in the UK now.
And I get it, because there is the kind of or stigma or conception or whatever the word is about rabbits, that they're just these very sweet, cute animals, and you get them and you look at them and they're nice, and that's kind of it. But like dogs, I mean, you don't need to train them as much as dogs. They don't depend on you for absolutely everything like dogs do. But just the same as them, they are just as big a commitment.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't realise is they think like rabbits are going to live like 4 or 5 years. Rabbits can live to be like 13, 14.
Yeah.
So it is very, like, a very long time that they could be with you. So it's whether... Well, I guess this also leads on to the subject of people buying them for their children.
Yeah, that's a no. That's...
in my opinion, like, this isn't me shaming anyone for doing it, because, like, you know your children more than we do. And if your children are really good with animals and, like, whatever, then, like, that's different. But rabbits can get quite scared of, like, being held and things like that.
Yeah, well, I suppose this leads into the other point, actually, which is that, they are easily overwhelmed.
Yeah. And children will just want to keep picking up an animal.
Yeah.
And that could really, 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 affect your bond with the rabbit, because they're just going to become scared of you.
Yeah, and that's when they do get aggressive.
Yeah. I can't remember what my second point was.
Well, it is that thing. I mean, because it's also kids just in general. When they are excited, they can be very loud. Mm-hmm. They can move very quickly. They can run about. Rabbits, tiny, quiet animals who like, they're prey creatures. They like to be a bit hidden. Mm-hmm. That can be scary as hell for them. They say in general, I think it takes a lot for a bunny to be comfortable being picked up. It's not a good, especially tipping them onto their back. That's not something they really might ever enjoy.
Also, I would suggest, like, if you really do want to get a rabbit for your child, like, we had rabbits when we were kids.
Yeah.
I do think there is ways about it where it can be, like, a good thing. I think, like, if you're considering getting a rabbit for your child, like, research the animal before you go and buy them. Because I think a lot of people go into pet shops like, oh, they're cute, and buy them, and then get overwhelmed because, oh, well, I just thought they were a cute animal. I wasn't expecting, like, all this. Like, if you are keeping more than one rabbit, which you should be doing, like, rabbits do thrive better with a friend.
Yeah.
If you are, then you will need to have them spayed or neutered.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realise. Like, they're like, oh, why are my rabbits becoming aggressive? They're siblings. And it's like, rabbits don't work that way. They will always have, like, fight for dominance.
Yeah.
And having them spayed or neutered will just get rid of some of that aggression.
They are surprisingly territorial.
Yeah.
I think all of that is important. Yeah, the overwhelmed comes in that as well. The position, the hierarchy positions. Noise, I think, as well. I think you make it sound like it's a massive thing. But I think if you do have kids, it can be fine. I think if your house is quite a chaotic one, as it can be if you have kids, then it's probably not an ideal house for a rabbit. Like bunnies, dogs can blend into the chaos of a house, I think, because they're quite chaotic animals themselves. And they're full on in enthusiasm, and they bound about, and they enjoy your enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's like your dad has a dog, and she is
all over the place.
Absolute chaos. She's non-stop.
Yeah. Whereas bunnies aren't like that and won't blend into that environment at all well. It will scare them, and if they get scared, that's when they might be aggressive. I've never known a bunny to be aggressive, but I know...
I've known a bunny to be aggressive to other rabbits, but not to...
Yeah, that's in different context, I think, though.
Yeah.
So all of that's important. The commitment of that, being prepared for what changes you may need to make as a whole to the environment you're creating for this bunny, and that it could be for a long time.
Be prepared that they're not going to be your best friend overnight.
Yeah. and like, I think some people think, oh, I can get it, and if it doesn't work out, I'll put it up for adoption or something. But they are so abandoned bunnies, and there are so many up for adoption already. You can't expect to just be able to rehome them is easy. So I think just know what you're getting in for, be careful before you do it as a result. And what we weren't going to do as a separate point that kind of comes into it was to say that bunnies they're really annoying.
They are.
You were saying earlier about people see them as they're just these cute things, but they're not just, I mean, they are that, but they're also, incredibly stubborn, love chewing things. get angry when you move their stuff, make a surprising amount of noise for animals that aren't at all vocal.
Constantly chewing things, this noise of chewing. You'll wake up to it at like 5 a.m.
Climbing on stuff, getting everywhere. Yeah. I mean, how they used to annoy you, they could run on the bed when you're trying to sleep. You got to be prepared for that, I think, as well.
On the subject of being really annoying, our rabbit Fred, when he was little, prior to him being neutered, because he was too young, he had an obsession with feet. Yes. He used to dig at our feet constantly. Yeah. If you were in bed, he would dig the duvet off your feet to get to your feet. He would bite your feet. He would dig your feet. He would...
Yeah. I mean, that was really... I mean, partly that's a territory thing, because they're not being spayed yet. And it's kind of like wanting to hump your feet for dominance, really. I think is a lot of it was, because he would honk and run around them, which is what they do when they're aroused.
It was funny, though, because we read online, if you make like a high-pitched noise when they're like nipping at your feet, they'll stop because they think they've hurt you. But then we realised Fred's deaf.
Yeah, that was kind of how we found out he was deaf, because it had no effect.
So that didn't work.
Yes, he was really annoying. I mean, I loved him then still, but it was really annoying. And
there were moments when it felt hard to love him, but
that was another commitment you have to be prepared for. Bunnies are really difficult like that. Like dogs can be incredibly annoying and chew and destroy and make mess, and can be very they can go through a bit of a rebellious phase. Bunnies have their own difficulties too.
I guess the biggest stress when getting a rabbit would be the fact that you do have to bond rabbits together. You can't just kind of fling them in a room and expect them to get along.
You can to begin with when they're very young. If they come together, maybe, to begin with.
Yeah.
Then
I guess if you are getting you already have a rabbit and you're getting a new rabbit.
Yeah, or when puberty happens.
Yes, yeah.
Then all of that territory, all of that fight for dominance, it can get surprisingly vicious.
Yeah, well, rabbits, I think they do just fight to the death. And they kind of go onto their sides and they scratch at each other's stomachs almost I think they do try and disembowel each other.
Yeah, and they do it with their eyes closed as well, so they can't really see when's the time to stop.
Yeah.
They'll just keep going.
And that's why if you are having to bond rabbits, you have to wear oven gloves or thick gardening gloves, because if they have their eyes closed, they will just attack anything.
It is a stressful experience. And the first time we did it, we were quite stressed because it's a lot.
Yeah.
But once you know what you're doing, and there's a lot of guides out there, and we'll probably make one too. It's relatively straightforward. It just requires you to be alert for the however long it takes, and you go through. It's quite minor, the first phase where they are trying to fight each other. Once you get past that, it's still a lot of work, but it gets quite easy quite quickly. They go from trying to kill each other to nipping each other to humping each other to being very close.
Yeah, I think it's all about kind of knowing what is okay to allow and what isn't. So the only thing that you shouldn't necessarily allow is actual full-on fights.
Yeah.
But if they're circling each other, or a little bit of fur is getting pulled, I don't think it's something to be concerned about.
No.
But it is when they are full on
and causing harm.
It's almost like a tornado in a way. They kind of just spin around and are just frantic.
It does make you anxious watching it, doesn't it? It's a sudden thing, and oh god. Once you get past that stage though, and once they're starting to get out of their system, it's not awful. It just requires a bit of time and a bit of alertness in case something flares up and they get back to fighting again.
Yeah, it's when our rabbit Lennon was put to sleep, we then had to kind of rebond our rabbits Hendrix and Fred.
Yeah.
And initially they hated each other.
Yes, they did. Fred was absolutely horrible.
Yeah. And now they're the best friends.
Yeah.
They love each other so much.
I would say there was only about twice they tried to fight each other, though, and put them together like that.
Fred was very much following Hendrix everywhere Hendrix went.
Yeah. Hendrix wasn't allowed in the litter tray. If Hendrix literally moved an inch, Fred was charging over to watch to see what he was going to do. Fred barely slept at all as a result there, did he? He was so on edge, trying to assert dominance.
But it is all worth it when you do see how happy they are together.
Yeah.
Because Fred and Hendrix are just great together, aren't they?
I mean, I suppose that's another good point to mention, though, as well, because I think a lot of people would see what bonding requires and say, that's cruel. Forcing your bunnies into a situation where they are at first causing each other harm and they do feel on edge.
Yeah.
Why do that? Why not just have a bunny on its own? And in a way, that's quite a reasonable argument, I think. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what you're doing with bonding, it can be scary and can look like a lot. Mm-hmm. I think the best argument against that, though, is that bunnies are very social animals. Mm-hmm. They're not made to be solitary like cats can be very solitary. Yeah. That's not bunnies. They need communication. They need affection. Mm-hmm.
And sure, you can offer your bunny affection to some extent, but nothing will ever be as good for that rabbit as their own kind.
Yeah, I think they do need that. I think they do need a partner. Mm-hmm.
It's like, for example, our rabbit Fred, with him being deaf and stuff, if he was on his own, he would really struggle. He looks to Hendrix for everything, really, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Hendrix is really good with him, and
he really depends on him for that.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I was a kid and we had Duster and Dylan, I think Duster died at about 6 years of age, and then Dylan lived to 14. So that was, that's 10 years on his own? No, 8 years on his own? I can do maths. And he was all right on his own. He was okay. We were there a fair amount of the time, and he did enjoy sitting with us and things, but it was still never ideal, and I think I wouldn't want that situation again, not for that amount of time.
No. And a lot of, if you have a rabbit already and you're wanting to get them a partner, if you get them through a rabbit rescue or a rescue centre, a lot of them do offer the bonding for you.
Yeah.
Which could be an option if you don't want to have the stress yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if that would... I assume that applies outside of the UK.
Yeah, I can't speak for them, but I know it's something that they do.
Yeah, and because it is scary and it's not ideal, but it's very much worth it, I think. But if you know what you're doing and you've researched on it and you're prepared for it, then it is worth doing. I think my biggest point I'd want to make in this video, though, I'd say is I've kind of, I don't know if it's the best wording, take the initiative to spot their needs. I guess what I mean by that, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, I think, but that they're not vocal like dogs, and that and they're prey animals, both of which mean they're not really going to express their needs to you a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. Hendrix did get to a position where she would jump on the bed wanting food. And they will run around you when they think you've got food. Mm-hmm. But if a bunny's ill, they're going to try their absolute best to hide it, because otherwise they're going to be seen as prey that's susceptible to predators. They don't want to show any weakness in that kind of way. And
in the wild, if a rabbit shows sickness, they will just get left behind by the rest of their group. So they do hide it. Mm-hmm. Pain, fear, you can spot them if you're alert and paying attention. Mm-hmm. But I think if people just let their bunnies get on with it, and if they've got a lot of noise going on at the time, so they're not hearing the tiny noises bunnies might make, and you're not used to bunny body language. I guess this would also come back to if they are getting kept in cages, it's going to be so hard for you to be able to properly see what your rabbit needs, because you're not going to know their body language. You're not going to
Because that does happen, doesn't it? People have them in tiny cage and say, "Oh, they're fine. They're very much happy there." But it's because you're not really you're not understanding how they communicate and what's going on. If a dog was in a cage like that, it would whine and you would know it's upset. Bunnies don't express like that, and that doesn't mean they're okay necessarily. It just means you have to actually take the initiative to try and look and pay attention and see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's worth, I do think, looking up all the types of body language, all the types of noise they do make to understand their behaviour. We should do that one day. We should do a video of all the different behaviours they can express.
Mm-hmm. And different ways they show they're happy or annoyed or sad or...
That would be a good video.
Mm-hmm. So I guess a kind of another thing we should touch upon is to be a bit wary of pet shops.
Yes.
I can't speak for all pet shops because there are probably some very small independent pet shops that are great, but some of the bigger kind of chain ones don't necessarily care about the animals. They just care about making money.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff that is sold in pet shops for rabbits isn't suitable. Some of the treats and things that involve nuts and seeds.
Yeah.
They shouldn't ever be given to rabbits. And just kind of before you buy your rabbit anything from a pet shop, maybe have a bit of a Google, if it's suitable or not.
Yeah, remember when we went in the other day and they were selling a giant salt lick for bunnies?
This is a common thing. They sell salt licks for bunnies, but bunnies don't need.
That's really bad for
salt.
them.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
They're not horses. I don't know if horses meant to have salt licks. Who knows? But yeah, things like that. And I also think as cute and sweet and stuff as the rabbits that you see in pet shops are, I don't necessarily think it is the best route to go down when getting a new pet.
Yeah.
And if you are, I would maybe research the pet shop that you're going to. Because I know, for example, can we name names for pet shops?
Why not?
In the UK, there's a pet shop called Pets at Home. And they are known to have, animal mills, I guess.
Yeah.
Where they're just mass breeding animals, which can lead to all types of, defects and stuff. Plus, I guess, buying from these places is...
It means they're going to breed
funding it to happen.
Yeah. And bunnies are already the most abandoned animals, and there's already an overrun amount of them at adoption centres and rehoming websites.
I also think, on the same kind of subject of pet shops, the people who work in these pet shops aren't necessarily trained in any type of animal care or animal management or anything like that.
Well, that's certainly true of Pets at Home, isn't it? They'd like you to know, but they don't like you to know too much about animals.
Yeah. And so... some of the advice that you could be getting given at this pet shop could be bad advice. So I would take it upon yourself, before anything, to have a Google.
Yeah.
Because I know, in Pets at Home, they're okay with having singular. Well, I've seen before employees saying it's okay to have a singular rabbit in a small hutch on their own.
Yeah,
it's that there's plenty of room and just things like that. They don't necessarily always have the animal's best interests at heart.
The very obvious example with Pets at Home is the hamster cages, where they do sell hamster cages, which by RSPCA guidelines are considered cruel to animals to have them that small.
Mm-hmm. It really upsets us to go in and see the hamsters, doesn't it?
Yeah, although the wording on that curiously changed from RSPCA. They had a sudden partnership with Pets at Home, which I imagine funded a lot to the RSPCA, and suddenly it wasn't cruel. They've swapped that out on their website since.
But having... sometimes they'll have up to 7 Syrian hamsters in a tiny little cube.
Yeah.
I've seen it before where they couldn't even get to the water. They had wheels that were way too tiny, which was going to cause their spines to deform after a while. So it's just things like that. Don't believe everything pet shops say.
Yeah.
Form your own judgment from research.
Yeah, consider rescue animals instead of buying them there. And I also think expect pet shops overcharge you and things like hay and forage. God, the amount cheaper there's like websites just for rabbits we found online.
We really like Just for Rabbits, don't we?
You can buy so much hay and forage and wonderful treats like that for a fraction of the costs pets at home would be charging.
There's also one called Bunny Bistro, I think, in the UK. I don't know if they ship elsewhere, but they have like really good kind of quality forages for not ridiculous prices.
Yeah, I mean there will be businesses out wherever you live, I assume, there will be businesses out there where people who are passionate about rabbits happen to own a big load of farmland or something and therefore grow all sorts of wonderful hay and things and forage treats so that you can sell, and they do it a lot cheaper than you'd get at a pet shop. You can find those things. Yeah, I just think that's something really worth looking at, not just for the ethics of it, but also because it does save you money in a lot of those ways.
Yeah.
And
I'd say like when it comes to like the whole like adopting rabbits instead of buying, I think there are so many rabbits out there in rescue centres at the moment.
Yeah.
Who would do, I don't know, they deserve a chance at a nice life.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I really want to adopt more rabbits at some point, don't I?
Hendrix and Lennon, they were rescue bunnies.
Yeah.
I think that leaves us 1 point. I think we kind of blended some of them when we were talking, running on tangents. The last one I'm going to add another one actually, before we get to that one. I'm going to say be prepared for possible vet difficulties. Because in vet terms, rabbits are considered exotic animals. They're still not seen as like a staple, ordinary pet, which means a lot of vets aren't necessarily trained in rabbits or that trained.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had my ordinary local vets, they do rabbits and they have a small animals specialist, but yeah, there's a lot they don't know and a lot they won't be able to do procedures on for rabbits.
Yeah, and while we were going through Lennon's whole ordeal, we kind of found a very good rabbit specialist vet who was just amazing. So it is worth like looking around to see if like in your local area there are rabbit specialist vets.
Yeah.
Because there are so many different like little like illnessy things that rabbits can get that maybe isn't understood yet. Like when we were going through everything with Lennon, like some of the vets had said they'd never seen this before.
Yeah.
So
I mean that was some of the problem with Lennon as well because it kept getting diagnosed wrong by the original vets. And I can't blame them for that because they are exotic animals. They're not necessarily that trained in it. So I do think that that's a rare occurrence that Lennon had something that was so rare and unknown in that kind of way. But I think just maybe be aware, either worth checking in advance or be aware that vets could be quite difficult if it is something difficult, or if there aren't any trained at all in your area, then you may need to be driving a long way to go to the vets.
Yeah. I also think like with rabbits, you should ideally be going like every 6 month checkups.
Yeah, there's a lot to check, isn't there?
Because rabbits' teeth are constantly growing, which is why they need to be chewing something to keep them grinding down.
Well, that was going to be the last point. So
okay.
We'll do that now then if you want.
Yeah, of course. So they do constantly need to be chewing things. But if for some reason their teeth aren't grinding down, they may need to be done at the vets. But you should be going for like 6 monthly kind of appointments to make sure the teeth are all fine.
Yeah, it can cause a surprising amount of problems. Even if the teeth aren't perfectly aligned with or if the teeth aren't perfectly straight, that can cause a lot of troubles for a bunny. You wouldn't think it.
Our rabbit Hendrix, they have something called spurs, I think, on her back teeth, which means kind of rabbits' teeth are meant to be flat so they can kind of like chew things easier.
I suppose it's because they go like left and right, don't they?
But Hendrix's have like a slight little like, I guess, what would you call it? Like
a slope.
A slope to them. So that's something that they say may eventually need to be like shaved down. But yeah, we do go for like regular vet checks to just make sure that it's all good. And
nails as well. There's something. Ideally, if your bunny trusts you, you can trim the nails yourself if you know what you're doing. But that's important as well. If they get too long, that's an issue. Obviously, there's vaccines. This is another point on the vets. Vaccines and neutering and surgeries in general tend to cost more for bunnies because they are exotic animals and they're small as well, which makes it probably tricky.
I do know as well, like vets' prices. I don't know how it is like around the world, but in the UK, is getting like really expensive.
Yeah.
I remember like a couple of years ago, like a rabbit like spay or neuter would be around like what, £70 to £90. Now it's like what, 140 plus.
Yeah.
So things are probably just going to keep increasing like that. So I guess like another thing, another factor of having a rabbit is thinking about affordability.
Yeah.
And if you can commit to like large like expenses.
Because I mean, it's surprising how much they can cost in the end when you think of it, all of it, and how much more vet bills are.
Yeah, like sure, like day-to-day rabbits are relatively cheap. Like it's hay, greens, and then like ideally you'd want to be using litter trays if they're free roam. So it's like litter, it's but then it's the added toys, the vet's bills.
It does add up, I think, yeah.
Replacing wires they made you.
I know all of that does again mean they are a commitment to be prepared for, I think, before you go into it. But I hope in all of this we haven't made them sound like they're awful animals, though. It's been a lot of... I suppose we've been focusing on the negatives here and the warnings to make it sound like it's a lot. It's really stressful.
We should do a video on the positives of owning rabbits.
Yeah, because I think they're my favourite pets out of anything.
Yeah, I adore rabbits. I love hamsters as well.
I like hamsters.
And I would love to have rats one day.
Yeah.
But I think my heart will always be with having rabbits.
I love my dad's dogs. I've spent a lot of time... I mean, I was living there when he first got them. My mum always had cats. I'm allergic to cats, but I still really like them. But bunnies, I think, are particularly special. I think they're a nice mix of where, despite everything we've said, they're not as high maintenance in the sense you can go out and leave them for the day if you've got two of them. They're not like dogs where they'll be whining and barking about you. You
don't have to wake up early on a cold winter morning to take them for walks.
Yes, that's a very nice one. Vocally, they don't make a huge amount. I mean, they do, but they're not going to be barking and disturbing neighbours. No,
they'll just be sat on your pillow waiting for food.
Yeah. And so they've got all of that, but they also kind of like... They can be like dogs in a lot of ways. They do love you, and they do want to follow you around and
you
know
can
what you're doing.
teach them to come to you.
Yeah.
Like, well, not Fred, he's deaf. But with Hendrix, I make like certain noises and Hendrix will come to me.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you can teach them and train them in that way. They're very intelligent, they've got very strong personalities. They're lovely animals.
They all have such different personalities as well.
Yeah.
Which is really sweet to see.
So I think on the basis of all of that, bunnies are very special animals, and I do think they're worth getting. Just be prepared before you do it, and be sure you are the right people to have them. Because they are, like dogs, they are a big commitment. They are not just for Christmas. Is that a conclusion?
They're not just for Easter.
Yeah. Is that a conclusion?
Yeah, I think so.
Anything else to add?
I guess if anyone has any questions,
we
could try and answer to our abilities.
Do you have a question you want to ask at the end of this video? Is that the right kind of video for it?
I think we should ask something animal related.
Do you have anything?
Yeah. If you have pets, let us know about them.
Yeah. What are their names?
Yeah.
What's the best name for a pet? It varies, doesn't it? Because like some names don't suit certain animals.
I think if we... So, so far, our rabbits, I should say, have had names of dead rock stars.
Yeah.
But if I was gonna...
So was mine Dylan, actually, when I was a kid. That was Bob Dylan I was after.
So if I was gonna go...
Oh, he's not dead, is he? No.
Isn't he?
No.
Oh. But if I was gonna go for, like, any other names, I either like old kind of people names, or...
Like what? Like Humphrey?
Like,
Godfrey?
I don't know. For example, one of my friends has a cat called Claude. So I love names like that. Bob, Dave, things like that. But I think if I was going to get another rabbit, I love the name Poirot.
That'd be good, yeah.
Yeah.
You liked on Stardew Valley when I called that pig Trousers, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I don't know what my favourite name would be, like.
Flump.
That would be Hendrix, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let us know what your pets are called, what you think.
Or if you don't have a pet, what pet would you like and what would you call them?
I remember when I was a kid, I really wanted a dog called Scrunch for some reason.
That's a horrendous name.
That's what everyone would say. Yeah, people would say that. But like, why Scrunch? And I don't know. It's not even a word.
Yeah.
But I wanted that. And now I don't. Yeah, so all of that. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe.
And bye.
Bye.